On today's Minute of the Apes, before we talk about today's Minute of the Apes, we're going to talk about yesterday's Minute of the Apes.
There it is. You're so good at that, Sean. Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. That was Sean and myself teasing you off the top. Richard, have you joined us yet today?
I'm here.
Oh, well, there
so I'm just looking at.
We're just a bunch of teasers.
Yeah. So Sean was not lying. We are going to start in a way that we don't often start, and being that in the break between the two episodes, we really looked back at the images of the Oberon.
The beginning of the movie.
And I found the opening establishing shot of that station, and Richard is right. Were you to take that spaceship at a certain angle, you could form a trident out of it. So what we want to say now that we've looked at that is they could have done a better job, and Sean had a very obvious idea of how you could make it easier.
Yeah, just don't name the Oberon, name it the Trident, and then it doesn't matter. Then that way, then the way the brand, if it does look like a Trident, you've got the name of it. If it looks like the spaceship, you've got the spaceship aspect.
Well, none of the names make sense. I mean, that's just go back to the fact that they're not picking any particular type of life.
I mean, Oberon's a Shakespearean character name.
But I mean, these are not. They don't reference any of the original films. They don't reference any particular pantheon of gods. They're just kind of like
pantheon of gods. Man, that was wow.
But I mean, it's just random names: Leda and Ari and
Oberon is king of the fairies and spouse of Titania and
Dana
Midsummer's Night Dream.
Not very apey names.
Thade.
Thade is the most foreign-sounding name so far. Any of these other this week, it could be a episode of the OC.
Limbo is a strange name for somebody. I mean, that feels like a name that would come from today's generation. You know, you got Apple, you got Blue Sky, you got Limbo.
I thought George Lucas's naming conventions were just kind of rudimentary when he'd name things literally what they are. But this just like has no reference on anything. They're just like, we're just gonna call this one. I don't know. Let's throw some vowels and consonants together. This is the name.
Just make sure not to use any names from the first movie.
I wonder if
there will be one.
I wonder if the whole reason going back to the Trident that they weren't more overt in its referential setup. Are they trying to subtly imply by having the Oberon here that somehow what occurred at the first of the film created the situations and events in this world? So it's a very subtle type thing.
Well,
because we still haven't found
it'd be the first introduction. The point is we were going to look and see if there's more references to it than we realize. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we still haven't found our missing pod with our chimp from the beginning of the movie, so we don't know whatever happened to that.
I mean, we're only a third of the way through the film.
Well,
No, it was. Sorry, I was being facetious.
Yeah, that's actually you being cruel.
But at the end of this week, we'll only be a fourth of the way through this movie.
Well, obviously you're going to drop nuggets of that. If that's what you're trying to do, is do a visual motif that, hey, here are the elements that tell you how this occurred.
All right.
I just do think, even if that, because that opening shot of the Oberon is to find said image, I had to pause it and look at what you said.
Yeah, and then imagine it. Yeah.
That it could make that very image of a one element sticking out and three prongs. There, my hands are doing right, going out. It would have been nice were the opening shot to be here's the space and the camera actually almost
showed you that angle
coming like that. Just so even if it's just a hint of it, but it's not there. You have to
imagine that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get on. We got minute 27. Sean, tell us what's going on.
All right, we're gonna start minute 27 with Ari stealing the branding iron and ends with Davidson quietly begging Ari for help.
All right, here it comes. Minute 27. Marky Mark, Tim Burton killing it with Planet of the Apes.
Oh, no. No, not you again.
You know me. Just can't stand by while human beings are being mistreated, tortured, mutilated.
The only reason I put up with your nonsense is because of your father.
Hey, if you want me to stop, give up your filthy business.
Hey, I do the job that nobody else wants. Besides, I don't see any of you bleeding hearts spending all day with these dangerous, dirty, dumb beasts.
They're not dumb. They can be taught to live with us as equals. And I'm gonna prove it.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't you. Stay back. Well, now, there's your proof. Now I'm gonna have to put him down.
Help me. Please. Please help me.
As in minute 27, we have an Oberon's worth of apes and humans, 2 displaced pods worth of humans and apes, and wild humans in an ape city.
All right, so we pick up where we left off with the second female human being about to be branded.
Yeah.
Ari runs in. It was not Yoda. Richard was a little off on that one.
All right. Just a little off.
But it ends up being Ari, who does kind of jump about like Yoda. She climbs and she uses vines inside the building, which I guess when you're an ape, you're okay with vines growing in your building.
So you have places for people to run up your wall. And
exactly. So then as she tosses around, jumps around, and banters with Paul Giamatti's character, she grabs the branding iron, tosses about his face, lets it fall aside, which conveniently falls right in front of the cage where Marky Mark stays. We then get Helena swinging about. Basically, I guess they constructed a jungle gym of sorts so she could swing up there. She jumps about. They're going back and forth. When she comes down, we see Marky Mark pick up the branding iron just before she has an exchange with Paul Giamatti. She goes to unlock the cage, and Marky Mark decides it's time to take a hostage. They go back and forth, and visually that's what we have is her standing in front of the cage as we hear the line, "Save me." Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go back to Ari. Ari jumping about. How do we feel about the jumping up on vines? I know Tim apparently one of the things that he really wanted was what Sean had been asking for so long. Let's make them actually act like apes.
Get them off the ground. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing that was bothering me about the scene is the giant walled rock formations around them. I know we've seen it in the city itself, but this is the first time I can actually, because she's moving around on the wall and then the vines that are there. And I'm immediately transported to those awful jungle rides that you would see, or the pirate rides at Disney. I feel like there's like a water moat that I don't see in a mechanical boat.
Yeah, it feels like it's set. Yeah,
that's supposed to go by. I mean, it's just really jarring. Yeah, particularly now that she's moving on that set, how it just looks like a fake set. Yes. The movement. So the only time we saw them have this kind of production was when they were in the woods and it was shadowed and they were kind of dropping out of trees and taking humans down. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we haven't seen a lot more of this kind of movement is a little unusual. Mm-hmm. I would like to have seen maybe somebody else jump up and kind of chase after her. Mm-hmm. As she's moving around the room, just so I get a sense that they move, because otherwise they've been largely walking upright.
And when she comes in, you're kind of right. I never thought of it. It's a very flat scene. Again, she's the only point of action, and there's no one trying to get her down. And also, Paul Giamatti, oh no, not again. It's like he never at one point says, get her. Now, I get it that she, even right now, they're trying to tell us she has some cachet in this world that would prohibit. Yeah, because I was about to say,
because he's like, if it weren't for your father, so what does her father do that allows her to come into the slaver's house with impunity and, give him gruff in his face and climb all over his house? And
why isn't he turning to someone at that point and saying, go get her father?
Yeah, why is he not, one of the apes, or one of the gorillas, just, can nobody grab her, get her off my vines?
Just something with a little more movement, because she's only moving unusually, and I would like to have seen that kind of something, just something like that.
And I think that the jumping about is fun. I like that this staging is here instead of just seeing another shuffling ape like we did in the originals. But is it really necessary? Is it a point where were they chasing after her a little bit?
Yeah, it'd be nice to see somebody else getting up on the vines and going after her. Yeah.
Then her scampering away across the jungle gym type look would be motivated, but there's no motivation other than we want her to do it.
We talked about in the last minute that this shadowy figure kind of moving back behind this branding moment is about to happen. It would have been more interesting if we saw her move past a guard entering the facility who then attempts to chase her a little bit, and then she swoops into the scene of the branding. So we have a sense of she's coming into the scene. There is some movement to try and stop her, and now she's just running wild. Just a little bit of setup before that would have been nice.
That's a good idea because there are tons of essays about this, about, you know, simple insert shots or insert moments, how they can be crucial to a film. And Denis Villeneuve, who did Dune, I was watching one about him. He also did you ever see that movie Prisoners, I think was the name of it?
Yeah, with Hugh Jackman. Yeah.
Very, very somber film.
Gyllenhaal,
but
yeah.
one of the critics that was talking about this was saying, and this was like some lecture at the AFI, so it's really...
I'm just curious, have you seen Prisoners?
I have.
Okay, that ending. Oh, okay,
yeah.
sorry. Anyway.
So there's actually a moment where the camera, just for no reason, pushes in on a tree that's in the front yard, and it goes to the bark, and you begin to see, and it puts in your head how the bark is unified, yet it's fractured, you know, and it's just these moments. I think if we put a moment in where she scampers past a guard and they're chasing in, it creates motion, motivation, all kinds of things that's the subtext to this, and there's none of it.
And gets her moving into an ape-like status of movement.
Yes.
Quickly would allow it to happen. Because for all we know, she left with her friend Lita, who said, "Let's go."
That is true. That's the last time, and we don't know why she's
here. She's
here.
like, "Oh, okay." And then, I don't know, did she leave? Did she not? Apparently not. Apparently she's just suddenly interrupting this particular moment with coming out of nowhere.
It would be good. Okay, so in later minutes, we will see more apey kind of stuff of using feet as hands and stuff. It would have been nice to have her drop the brand into her foot, hold it there, you know, as stuff. And so while she's going on the jungle gym,
that'd be a
and
cool idea.
then you also have the other apes chasing her, and one knocks it out of her hand instead of her just grabbing it and throwing it down. That way, everybody's distracted that the brand has fallen down because she just took it from them and threw it down. Why is nobody going to get this incredibly dangerous thing that's sitting there that can actually start your building on fire because it's sitting on the fucking ground?
I mean, it's more about the interaction between Ari and Limbo at this particular point in their conversation to let us know what's going on.
Is that his name is Limbo?
Yeah, Limbo, yeah.
The back and forth between the two of them is to kind of get some basis about what she's doing and why there's motivation for her to do this.
But it just feels like I'm putting the tool in front of Davidson so that he can grab it to be used later, where it would have been better if she had been knocked out of her hand and they're struggling. That way nobody notices them getting it because everybody's focused on her.
And I know this is an aesthetic thing. Half of what we do is aesthetics. So the way that it's revealed that Marky Mark sees it comes a little weird to me because it feels like I should see the tumbling of it cut, and don't let me see Marky Mark seeing it. Go back then to a wide shot where I see the actual spatial relations of where it's laying, where she is, and his eyes casting down. Then you go maybe to a shot, because the way it is where we see him and it looks down, it feels like it's in the wrong place and way this scene needs to transpire. I feel like that should come just a beat later because it's flat. His motivation and his decision needs to be more rapid to me, and I found it very awkward. So that when he picks it up, now let's see, from the moment he goes to pick it up, that's 29 seconds until the moment when he pulls her in and uses it. And by the way, this is where it drove me nuts that it's still glowing. It's 16 seconds later.
Well, it will hold on to heat for a little while.
It wouldn't glow that completely. I can almost... Again, somebody can come out here that knows metal. I don't think it would be glowing that completely. I think there'd be bits of it. Anyway...
I'm just warning. If you want to...
It's 16
you don't
seconds.
mind her eating shoes, but if you do, then you might want to pick up your other shoe too.
I know that 16 seconds doesn't seem like much, but in a film, in the construction of a scene, that 16 seconds is almost laboriously long, so that when he picks it up and he uses it, it left me immediately going, what's his motivation here? Because, hang on, not only that, she's gone over to open the cage. She's gone over to say this. Why the fuck is he holding someone hostage when she's about to let him out?
Well, I've also had some questions of, all right, so they're saying that they're stupid and they can't be educated. Although we've heard Chris Christopherson say no right before this, but I could go with, all right, maybe it's a parrot parroting something and it's not necessarily knowing what it's saying. But when Davidson has her and is going, please help me. Is this the first time she's heard a human speak, or is this not something that's surprising to her? Because if it's the first time, she should be shocked and say, "Look, this guy speaking? What's going on? If it's not, then these creatures can form a sentence that expresses its intent. How is that not intelligent or as being able to be as rational as the apes are?
Let's get into this then that I kind of alluded to yesterday with the original film, with the muteness, the animalness, all these things. We don't know, number one, why the dichotomy of the human to ape situation exists. We don't know whether they're stupid. We don't know they're intelligent. If they're intelligent, why aren't they acting upon it? Why aren't they trying to reason to it? Why do they just sort of sit in the back and let them do it? Has there been something that has occurred to the humans? We don't know.
It would have been more interesting if he were to speak this time and we don't know the others could speak yet.
Yeah,
until
exactly.
later on, right.
If we had not heard them speaking already, yeah.
Well, and
Otherwise
if you
it's not a
had
surprise.
and if you had
Yeah.
that Taylor moment where they're all when he speaks, it's
But then then you get the reverse though. If he speaks and she's not surprised, and then you find out everybody else can speak, but we don't. We've heard Chris Christopherson speak, but we don't know if they know that the humans can speak.
do they know that he's a great? Do
well-
they know he's a great songwriter at this point too?
We know that Limbo was also giving him directions.
Right.
Ladies
Yeah,
to the
they
left.
can understand stuff.
Ladies to the left.
Yeah, but yeah.
So I did have a note here that when he says these dumb beasts, is that okay? Let's take into account that they can speak and all this reasoning. You can see it. Are we directly trying to correlate the racial type situations where whites at one time during race situations would call a person of an African American descent a beast, an animal? Is that? But even though they could obviously reason and they could talk to you, they still
They
couldn't
make
see past-
clothing. I mean, come on.
Is that what we're trying to correlate here? And if so, that's fine. That's a great thing to address, is the absolute stupidity that whites believe that they were beasts, that they could talk and reason.
I don't know if Burton
But
would be,
it's not clear and it doesn't work.
You're
I don't know if Tim Burton would be that subtle.
the well, what is my feeling on this? My feeling on this is I feel like that is what the intent is. The intent is to draw a parallel between how whites treated people of color in an area where there was slave trading and that kind of stuff. And even though there were clearly signs of intelligence and the ability to speak and things like that, the whites wanted to keep everybody kind of ignorant and dumb and kind of that stuff. And so they would, berate them and this kind of so on. What I'm bothered by is I'm not sure that a white British director, story writer can't wait. Tim Burton's British, right?
No, he's
American. I'm not sure.
He just wants to be
I'm not
British.
sure that a white American writer can put this kind of reverse racism when his dominant actors are white. It bothers me a lot.
Now, I do think, I think there's an interesting film if you wanted to do that, and maybe it could be illuminating to a Caucasian audience, were you to put blacks in the place of power doing it to them. Now, you probably get a lot of backlash going, now you're doing the reverse of it. Yeah, but I'm also trying to show the parallels of how stupid that behavior was. I thought this was very ham-fisted. I thought it was sloppy. I think it's lazy. I'm not letting myself be offended by it because this was created much long ago.
It was.
Yeah.
Our norms have changed a little bit, and to the same way in Sandman, they raised the diversity quotient of the Sandman characters for the show versus the original. Sure, this is 2001 when this came out,
Something like that.
Yeah.
and but watching it through today's lens, it's a hard kind of sell for
is.
me to watch largely white actors be subjugated by apes in a reverse racism sort of way.
Going back again to the original film, I did not expect this movie to do for me what it is doing. I already loved that movie, but it's making me appreciate it so much more. And how Rod Steiger and all these people, that actually went along and helped develop this, found a truth of, let's take humanity and let's take all their intelligence away. Let's do all these things. Let's do that. And that allowed us to see oppression. That allowed us to talk about race. That those were germane to their time. This is so disgustingly obvious that it just becomes painful, and it becomes like, is that really what they're trying to do? And I think it's not clear. It's not. They've not drawn these lines. It's like they want to have this discussion, and they're not brave enough to do it.
The dialogue makes it a very heavy hammer. It's like it's just like I don't know.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get a little bit more about. She's got a father that's important. That apparently she can kind of run around and do what she wants.
Gives her a little carte blanche.
Yeah, exactly what to do. Clearly, she's a human rights activist.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, yeah.
Right.
Which I found very odd. That whatever.
They're not dumb. They can be taught to live with us, and I'm going to prove it. Oh, okay.
By proving it and forcing them to be anything other than they want to be, aren't you also?
They can be taught to live with us. I'm going to prove it. It was these are just really weird statements.
Well, and also let's go back to how good Helena can be. She in The Crown. God, there were moments where there's no other word but delicious when she's just sitting around and just sort of looking with unapproving eyes upon people.
Look, if you want to talk about the Queen dying, that's fine, Ty. You don't have to bring it up by the crown.
No, I'm not a Queen fan. But then,
hey, what are your problem with Freddie Mercury?
Being a fan of musicals and Sweeney Todd, I don't think she's the right choice for it, but she's still very good in what she brings. This woman steps into things, and it's great. I think in this moment, she's doing what she can, but this moment doesn't have the heft they want it to.
Yeah.
And, if especially they can be taught, I'm going to prove it. I'm sorry. If she believes, if that conviction is that strong, she needs to be like, I'm going to there needs to be conviction behind it, and there's none.
I really want to know what appealed to her about taking this particular role.
Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Well,
she likes doing stuff with him.
They weren't dating at this particular
No, but
point.
I think his cachet of who he was and wanting to try something with him.
And maybe she wanted to try the makeup. She doesn't. While she does makeup work,
right.
It's not special effects makeup work that she does a whole lot of stuff with.
Going back to loving, and Sweeney Todd is my favorite musical of all time. Love that musical. And like I said, she's from somebody that loves it. She's not the perfect vocal choice, but she said the reason she wanted it was the fear of doing what she's not accustomed to, something new. So maybe to Sean's point, putting on makeup and doing something like this was very appealing with a director like Tim Burton.
Yeah.
So the last thing is, as we approach kind of the end of the show for today, why does Marky Mark take a hostage when that person is going to let you out? Why does he feel the need to use aggression at that point and say, help me? Should he can see that's going to be open, and shouldn't he just look to her and go, help me? And, then if her eyes are open or something like that, I don't understand.
Maybe they're trying to make him more, because he's been pretty passive since he's got here. He crashed, and then he was chased and kidnapped and put in the car and split up and put in cages. So maybe they're, for the last 10 minutes, he hasn't done anything. So they're trying to make him more active.
Maybe. I thought it was a very weird type thing. I was like, well, I don't know that you need to take her hostage, and it's probably going to bring some hostility upon you that you don't need. And I also don't know that a branding iron is the best weapon when you want to do that.
He had a different weapon in the script.
Oh, what was it?
Leo reaches out for
his
a chain,
penis.
For a chain snaked in the dirt. Suddenly whips it around the foot of a handler, yanks him off balance. His spear flies back for his hand. Leo grabs it, pointed at Ari's neck. It's supposed to be a spear, not the brand.
So to Sean's point, it could be Dirk Diggler's penis.
Yeah.
Did you notice when he is talking to her, help me please, his hand is constantly squeezing her shoulder?
Yeah,
oddly.
massaging it.
What is he doing there?
Yeah, I did notice that.
Hey, pretty ape lady.
Well, I did notice that for somebody that's been running through everything, his nails are so beautifully manicured.
Oh, yeah,
and
there's
they're
no
so
grime
clean.
under it, yeah.
It's like he has very pretty hands at that point. Well, it's a weird moment. It's probably, for me, this entire exchange is one of the weirder moments that we've gotten so far, that I don't understand a lot of the motivations.
Yeah.
I think the biggest motivation I understand is limbo, because these are his possessions. This is his to do. You're interrupting. The rest of them I don't really understand.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm with you there.
There we go. All right, that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Everyone have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.